there is a stunning truth about the Biden vaccine mandates, and I shall discuss that in a moment. Before I do, my friends, once, as I always say, if you want to keep helping me bring this message to you, then just very quickly, please subscribe, like, and share and comment on this video. It helps me very much. Now let's get into my analysis. My friends, as is probably old news right now, most of you know that a week or so ago at the time of this recording of this video, President Joe Biden signed an executive order which would utilize OSHA, the Occupational Safety Office in the executive government, to go ahead and use its powers, its administrative powers, to basically force almost 100 million, between 80 million to 100 million Americans, on the basis of estimates, to receive either the COVID vaccine shot or weekly testing, no other exceptions, no other choices for employers. Biden has done this on the basis that, and as he famously said, this is no longer about personal choice. This is about public safety. This is about public health. To the rousing applause of many people on the left who believe, and folks in general, other people who are more communitarian, who genuinely believe that the personal choices that someone makes, or rather, that's redundant, that the choices someone makes about what goes into their body is a choice made by the society or the community, not by the individual themselves. My friends, I have been silent about this for a moment because I have wanted to gather my thoughts, because I see these kind of events not just as political one and dones that can be reacted to with a lot of passion and anger, then dismissed and moved on upon to go ahead with a news cycle. These are the highest violations of morality, and they're also philosophical statements. When Joe Biden basically diminishes the role of public choice, he's diminishing a relationship that is very important to any kind of sane, ethical thinking, and that is the principle, the relationship between action and responsibility. My friends, one of the very reasons why accountability even makes sense in a sort of punitive sense, in a sort of sense of justice, is because all of us are held to be responsible for our actions unless we are not under a few particular circumstances. But when you assail the very root of accountability, the very root of that relationship, the entire basis by which we evaluate the concept of justice, whether that be a correct basis or not, is immaterial. The basis by which we do so in the justice system and in the general understanding of justice falls apart. And then you have a radical reformation, a radical transformation of what it simply means to be just, what it simply means to be reciprocal. So not only is Biden's executive order, which is ostensibly simply an administrative rule coming down from the resolute desk, not only is that a moral statement, my friends, it's also a moral redefinition as well. Not just because it undermines the root of responsibility, which is the core of accountability, also because it undermines the context in which we can deduce good moral thinking. What do I mean? My friends, when we divorce morality from real-world terms, tyranny is one of the consequences. What do I mean by this? Every single moral decision, every single moral axiom that exists and discerns what is correct and what is right, all of those can be observed and deduced from the world we live in. We can observe and deduce that murdering someone or taking their property is wrong because it disrupts the principle of harmony, of animated life that human beings require to remain alive, that we require to remain existing. And if those very core principles of existence are interrupted, then any moral conversation becomes absolutely irrelevant, because if no one exists, if no one is living, how in the world can you have morality? You can't. Morality requires warm bodies, conscious beings to be in the same space. Of course, moral rules exist outside of us and our existences. However, moral rules do indeed require us and our existences to be manifested in a social context. This should go without saying. So instead of looking at the natural world and respecting the principle of self-preservation and self-governance, which are two very core axioms which animate the existence of the human being, Joe Biden has ripped morality from the natural world and has placed it in an artificial political context where abstract ideas, grand ideas, substitute for the individual. The individual, which is a very measurable thing, no longer exists, but these ideas, which are created by policy, which are created in within the corridors and the confines of academic papers. They most certainly exist, and they can be put onto people. What are these ideas that I'm talking about? My friends, this idea of public health or public safety, which has been used ad nausea. I guess it isn't ad hominem at this point, because it assails the very nature of my character to suggest that my health is a public matter than it is a private matter. But this concept is an abstract concept which does not cohere to the fact that I just mentioned, that health is an individual matter. It treats everyone's health as similar on a grand scale and then tries to legislate policy on the basis of this grand assumption that everyone's health is similar. Now, of course, there's a logical catastrophe that happens with this when we examine the basis of health itself. COVID-19 does not affect everyone the same. Some folks get COVID and they have no symptoms. Other folks get COVID and they have a very hard time and then they're dying. In any case, we don't want to get COVID, but COVID's interaction with the human being is fundamentally unique to our individual medical history, to our individual genes, to our individual weight, and everything that constitutes what a healthy person is. COVID is unique to that. Its effects are unique to that. Yet public health says, since this thing can move beyond just you, we'll assume it's public and we'll make these grand decisions, which in many cases have no respect to the individual circumstances by which health is determined. Do you see what I'm saying? So the idea of public health rips the idea of health from me. It rips the idea of health from the individual, and it makes it an abstract political cause by which health can mean anything in that moment. Do you understand what I'm saying right now? We've created these broad categories, which are utterly meaningless when we riddle them down to where those terms that they use originate from. And the idea that the government has the ability, the human capacity to legislate the actions of millions of Americans, as Biden has tried to say with his executive order, the idea that it has the capacity and the obligation and the responsibility, to do that, also flies in the face when we observe the nature of things. What do I mean by that? My friends, as the political theorist F.A. Hayek, who I think had a lot of good economic insights, didn't have very good moral insights or ethical insights, but had a lot of good economic insights, said, management from the top down is so difficult because human action, the way humans still do things, is so spontaneous, it's infinitesimal, it's variable, it goes everywhere. So the idea that a bureaucrat can capture my actions, can capture my spirit, can capture what, and predict and map out life for me is an idea that runs right in the face of how things actually are in reality and is ultimately inefficient and impossible. And whenever a country has tried to do such things, whether it was the King George trying to micromanage the American colonists, whether it was Stalin trying to go ahead and micromanage the farms by collectivizing them and going to the kulaks in Ukraine and saying, no, this is my stuff now. Whenever it happens, whether it was Mao, whatever it happens, catastrophe follows. Now, this is not a consequentialist argument. I'm simply saying, from principle, certain things shall follow. If you go on top of a building without any safety equipment and you jump off, you will fall down and you will bust your head on the pavement. By principle, certain things follow. So if by principle, certain things follow, and that gives us a reason as to why we need to follow the principles, at least part of a reason, then why in the world can we not understand that by principle, we should have our laws conform to certain things? This was the understanding of the American founding. By principle, we have rights. By principle, government protects those rights. By principle, cooperation and voluntary association are the best modes of action for any flourishing and just civilization. By principle. But this is not about principle with the Biden administration. It's about utilitarianism. It's about the idea that if he doesn't do anything to protect the public safety, people will die, and therefore things will be bad off. Things will be worse off. My friends, I don't want anyone to die. I don't want anyone to lose their life to a virus. But I also don't want anyone to think that mortality is an excuse for the abject violation of their very essence. If you're saving me from a disease, yet you're saving me from a disease with methodology, that is actually worse for than the disease morally, because the disease does not have a moral constitution. Viruses do not have a moral constitution, right? So what I mean by that is that viruses themselves do not bequeath or give moral statements, but actions given by governments are all about moral statements, all about ethical statements. So the virus, which is an amoral entity that exists out there in nature, does not have the ability to make moral statements, versus a government, which makes moral statements during its actions. Which one do I want to constrain or try to constrain to proper moral decision making? The government, obviously, because that's the only one that can possibly constrain. But once again, when you remove me, when you remove the individual, when you remove the natural world from all the decisions, as Biden has, saying that it's not about personal choice, you justify absurdity. This is a practice in absurdity. This mandate is a practice in absurdity. Yes, it's illogical, but it's also morally absurd. It's the height of immorality. It goes against everything we can observe and understand in this world. Excuse me. I have said this time and time again, my friends, and the French theorist Jean Barbarak echoes my sentiments. In the event that the laws of this country violate the laws of justice, which are, as he says, written in our hearts, which simply means that they are deduced from nature, and they involve rights and the relationship between rights, obligation, responsibility, morality, which all form morality, the moment when the laws of this world violate the laws of justice is the moment when we must resist peacefully. So, my friends, resisting peacefully does not simply mean going out and protesting. It means withholding your power. My friends, you got moral power. In fact, all rights are, if you want to follow the definition of the natural law theorists, are capacities that we have within our being that conform to our nature, that adhere to our nature, and are within our power, within our volition to manifest. So when I say that I have a right to preserve myself, I got power over myself. That's implicit in that. When I say that I have a right to liberty, it means I got power of action. My friends, you have power over this stuff. But the question becomes, are you going to utilize your moral power to go against fundamentally immoral, anti-human ideas? Or will you continue to stay on the surface, complain, whine, whatever you want to do, and do some partisan hand-wringing just to make a point, just to say you're fighting? No. You have to fight with will. You have to fight with courage. You have to fight with every essence of your human being. This is a battle of values, a spiritual war of values and morals. This is not any longer, nor has it ever been, a carnal war of political party versus political party. That is an illusion that you have been given by those who wish to conserve the narrative. Take back the narrative for yourself and understand where the true story lies. That's it. My friends, I love you so much. Think on it. If you want to support me, patreon.com/BillCWatson, PayPal, official cwatson@gmail.com, or you can join Discord, which is in the comment section down below, or my locals, which is also in the comment section down below. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.